The RIP Part 3.
While we were leaving, I couldn't help but wonder what that pool was all about. Could be nothing more than a sports pool. As Crookshank and I made our way down through the dining hall, I couldn't help but notice all the old people yelling into their cell phones like it was a foghorn. My wife has a cell phone attached to her much like my gun is to my hip. She keeps nagging me to get one. Why? Hell, she would be calling me so much the phone would be ringing like church bells on Sunday morning coming down. We made our way through the chatter to the end of the dining room. At the exit in sight, I noticed a paper with the same grid on it. Must belong to the Johnsons. I grabbed the paper and gave it to Crookshank. Since I'm not a gambling man, asked Rob to look it over. After a quick glance, Crookshank said in a surprised voice, "This is not a sports pool, Lieutenant. Some kind of retirement investment scheme. They call it the RRIP." "Meaning what?" I said. Crookshank just shrugged. "Well, it's back to the Johnsons' room. Gotta tap that boy for some answers." When we got back upstairs, Reuben and the rest of the crime scene division were still there, and the coroner was hauling away the body. The doors wide open. Johnson and Son seemed surprised to see us back so soon. Bob spoke up. "Detectives, what can we do for you? Is everything okay?" I looked at Bob, grabbed the paper from Crookshank, and said, "Found this in the dining hall. Must belong to you. Can you explain what this is?" He started pulling on his beard and said, "Oh, yeah. It's a game we play, for fun, like I said before." "Okay, no, I don't know. Why don't you explain to me what this is? And the RRIP is an acronym for what, I'm guessing. So let's say you start telling me what this is all about and what it stands for." The boy seems to have developed a bunch of nervous tics. Crookshank sits on the edge of the bed and says, "Look, help us out here." Bob looks up and says, "Well, it means Registered Retirement Investment Pool." "Ah, so you can help the elderly save money, I hope, at this little game of yours." "Well, Detective," he says, "it's more like win money." "How, pray tell, does that work?" At this point, I was about to take some notes. Instead, I asked Crookshank to learn some old-fashioned police work. I nudged him and said, "Break out that computer pad thing of yours and start taking some notes, would ya? God forbid that computer thing breaks, we'd lose everything. If my pencil breaks, I just pull out another one and I'm good to go." "Well, Lieutenant Calhoun, I store my files in the cloud, so it won't matter. No worries." "The cloud? What the—" "Never mind. Just take some notes, Crookshank." That kid spit out every detail. I must say, after all my years on the force, I didn't see this one coming. Now, the way this all worked was any resident of the last resort could enter the pool by adding their name and age to the list with a minimum bet of about $100. There were well over 100 names on the list. This is the part that kills me. They then placed their bet on who they thought would die first. If they get it right, they win the pool. That's just wrong on too many levels. Bob Johnson first called it a death pool, but then wanted to make it sound a little more professional by calling it the RRIP. Crookshank and I discreetly hauled Bob Johnson out. I told one of the uniforms to stay with Mr. Johnson, not that he was going anywhere soon. And for what I can tell, he had no idea what was going on. Dementia, I suspect. As we were leaving, I told Reuben to go through a room to look for paperwork on the investment pool as evidence. As we finally made our way out of the building, there was a big ruckus at the door. Someone was yelling and pounding at the office door. I told Crookshank to take Bob down to the squad car. I headed back inside to see what was going on.